after this intro by Bruno Machado with music composed by Gionata Zanetta, we are here at the Studio Foce for the second event of this International Animation Day, which for the first time comes to Ticino, to southern Switzerland, thanks to the Gruppo della Svizzera Italiana del Film di Animazione. As I said, we are at Foce, the Studio Foce in Lugano, which is also the house of Agorateca, the book and film library of the city of Lugano. But Agorateca also promotes author cinema with meetings and screenings, of course. So we are extremely happy to be here in Lugano, and it's the first event for the GSIFA taking place in Lugano. After having hosted Paloma Canonica today for the first meeting, we are honored and extremely happy to welcome Swiss animator and illustrator Basil Vogt. But first, we welcome Jonathan Wuest, member of the GSIFA, Groupe Suisse du Film d'Animation, and who is also the contact of the ASIFA, the Association Internationale Film d'Animation, for the International Animation Day. Thank you for being here, Jonathan. It's a great pleasure for us. And I'd like to ask you, what are the events for the International Animation Day taking place in Switzerland? Because it's the first year for us, but this special event takes place in Switzerland for a few years now.
For not so long yet. It just happened that the event of the International Animation Day goes back to 2002 when the ASIFA started it, initiated it, but in Switzerland it's still a young history of International Animation Days. There have been a few events that kind of took on the idea that there's this official International Animation Day on October the 28th and put together a program, but there is a special film exchange program coordinated by the ASIFA, where the individual national chapters of the ASIFA can share their films, and then the other chapters can select those films that they want to show in their own country. And in the format of this film exchange, the first event took place last year, actually, where I took on that idea and want to do a film event. And it's changing a bit every year where it's happening. This year we had an event in Zurich on the 28th of October, the official International Animation Day. And we had an event in Basel on the 30th of October. And today here in Lugano, which I'm really, really glad about.
So you're a member of the GSIFA, as we said, and what is the main activity of the association and what are its goals?
I would describe the activities of the GSIFA in two ways. One is to interconnect the Swiss filmmakers, animation filmmakers with each other, which is very important because when we work, we very often work in our own studios, by our own or in small groups. And I think the GSIFA helps a lot to interconnect these filmmakers with each other, to call them together for special events or for at festivals to host a event where the people can meet. The other important job they have is to promote an animation film, first to the public is one thing, but also especially to the government, to make sure that there's enough funding for animation films. And that's a big job that they do, and I think they also really do well to bring into the mind of the people who can decide how much money is distributed, how to bring into their mind how important animation film is for Switzerland, and it should be an important medium that we should cherish and be proud of.
Absolutely. And you are also an animator yourself, and you've worked as animator on one of the short films by Basil Vogt, that we'll see later tonight, Duodrome. And what was exactly your task there, and what experience has it been for you?
I came onto the production quite late in the progress, and sometimes it seems to me the later you come to the progress, the more complicated your role is, in the way that you have to take on several roles, which is also exciting at the same time. So I, for one part, I did some cleaning of the animation. So you have to imagine that you first do animation where you mainly focus on the timing and that the anatomy is right, that the characters are on model, and that the whole acting looks nice. And that takes a lot of focus and the concentration already. And then it helps if you can do the whole clean drawing in a second going. And very often you also ask other people to do that. So I did some of this cleaning, and I also did some secondary animation, some characters in the background, for example, or you will see that in some scenes there are a lot of people there, and some of those people animated. And the longer the progress went on, and I was there working together with Basil, I also got the opportunity to animate some shots with the main characters that were still open, that were still to do. And in this way, it was really exciting to actually see the different levels of the production.
We're very excited to go more in deepness in this excellent short film later tonight. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for being here. And
thank you for having me here.
For being with us. And I'm very happy to welcome Basil Vogt for this meeting. Basil, of course, is film director, animator, but he's also a professor in Lucerne. So his activity is very, let's say, wide. And we will see that he also builds pre-cinema devices. So a very interesting animation person that we are very excited to talk to. And I remind you that if you have any question for Basil tonight, you can ask it in the comment section of the channels you're watching the meeting to. And hi, Basil. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So feel free to ask any question. Basil, as I said, you're animator, illustrator, director, and professor, but you also build pre-cinema devices. Some of them you even built as a kid, which is why I would like to start with this tonight. And what fascinates you the most in these machines, and which role does this kind of work have in your artistic work?
Oh yes, it's quite a lot of questions. I was always fascinated by technique also of things, so I always wanted to wish how things are working, and so but the kit you told about, this assemble kit in cardboard, I actually developed because I already started to do workshops with children, and I always thought it would be nice to have something they can just take at home and take with them. I also done them with that they could build up something like that, and then I thought, it should be something you can just sell for a low price. So, but I do more and more strips of pictures, and so it becomes quite a publication with my own films, and also with films about film history. So it's grown up to a publication, yes. So.
Can you describe a little bit what you brought to us tonight? We have a few examples here. we
Yeah.
can take a look at them.
Okay,
more.
we can start with this Praxinoscope, so-called. Maybe, yeah. Maybe you can see a little sequence here. Yeah, I've done this this object. Now it's 22 years ago, and until it's when it's appeared, and we made about 500 copies. This is just it's a combination of a lot of skills I used to do this, to have this cardboard work, but also researches. I met the granddaughter of the inventor of this toy in Paris, and she gave me some answers to my questions about the inventor. But this is also in the publication, yes.
For those who don't know, when was this created?
Yeah, it is in 1877. It was the
Before
first invention.
cinema.
Yeah,
basically,
it
before
is
what we
a
consider
couple
cinema.
of years before cinema. It was actually built up first as this single unit, so with the mirrors, and then he built one year later. He built this theater version, he called, because it's also mirroring a background inside, which gives the scenery to the animation. And but he is coming up later. He made a theater, a cinema version in a kind. He could project the films, and he could do longer films, and that's actually also the animation day. We celebrate the first screening of that in Paris. This was 3 years before the cinema appears in Lumière version. Yeah.
So you do a lot of pre-cinema. You build a lot of pre-cinema devices, flip books, pseudoscope also, which are some kind of glasses with mirrors, right?
Yes. Well, the pseudoscope is actually a thing I made because I made a little work about viewing, a topic of viewing, and the pseudoscope is a tool in mirrors which are changing the right eye and the left eye. So you can see somehow the space, the room will change to the other side. Things you see near are looks like they are far away. So, and if there is not a perspective connection, it's a very image. That was this one of these experiment. Yes, I've done. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You've made this maquette of the Xenix cinema, which inside has a real screen with an animated picture. What technique is that? I think you have something.
I can show it first, maybe.
The same technique.
In the same technique. Actually, I started 17 years ago. Made the first of this, but I know it for a longer time. But then I checked this out. This is Cinema Ombre, or Ombro Cinema, and Shadow Cinema. Can maybe does it works?
I think that camera can show.
Camera maybe. This was a commissioned work for a museum, and so it was. The meaning is different genre of cinema to show. Well, there are actually two effects in one picture. With this motif, we can see it quite clearly. You can see in the middle a two pictures animation, very simple, and on the top and on the bottom you see some another effect called moiré effect. So things are moving by connecting two grids on each other. And I was quite fascinated by this simple technique. So I've got maybe a third and then...
Yes, excellent.
So just here are the horror film, but I want also to, with two pictures, you can already tell a little story. Here is the story of the children. They are frightened by the ghost, and all the way around, the ghosts are frightened by the children. So they change each other. Right. Yeah. So I worked for a couple of years in cinema Xenix, and there I was asked to do this model. Here I use it to show a little film on the screen. This is here. I don't know if you can see a bit in the camera. It's the same effect, but here it's a little, yeah. So
here it's longer because it's a roll.
Yeah, it's a roll,
basically.
and you can show a longer film in this place, and yeah, you can put this off. It's like a model. You could change the film in the cinema, and it's also with a little poster who is changing on the side of the bar where the people are waiting and looking what program is on in the cinema. So
fantastic. Studios should shoot films in this format, actually. So the illusion of motion is basically what brought men to cinema, and animation was cinema before what we consider cinema. So is this for you also a way to relate to this history of cinema in general?
Yeah, I think animation is maybe something, if you are interested in animation, you will sooner or later you will discover all this pre-cinema because those are older as the invention of photography. So they started up with the first animation on the wheel of, or zoetrope, which is the same system, but it's another technical yes, a way to do it with the slots. Yeah, you know, this pre-cinema. It's a couple of years earlier. Yes, and so it has during some time until they brought the three inventions together to take a picture with a camera, so photography, to do the motion of it, to bring it in motion. So it's pre-cinema as the movement. And the third invention was to show, to have a place where you show the things. That people are going to a place to see something, like I don't know, panoramas or other inventions were there before cinema or preparing cinema. So yeah, that's why I think the most of people of doing animation are always coming to this first using of it. And it's also for children. I think it's nice to work, if you do workshops, they're always fascinated in these basic elements to use. Yes. Mm-hmm.
We have a footage of about a minute with 3 other examples of your devices, so we can watch them, and then we will talk about them right after it. So Basil, the first device that we saw is now in Solothurn. Is for a museum or an exhibition, if I'm not mistaken, and it's your latest device. Can you describe it to us a little bit?
Yes, I was asked by the exhibition makers, and finally I worked with the museum together to develop a version of press cinema to show how birds are flying, 3 different kinds of birds flying. And it's interesting to do this commissioned work because first of all, it used a lot of research. Which picture can I use for that? And then I offered with a little cardboard model. That's maybe nice to do it in this transparent or acrylic glass version of Praxinoscope. So it's the same thing, but we look through the glass inside. And so we developed this together somehow, yes. And it's just, I wanted to deliver it in the time in spring. Of course, it didn't work. So at that time, we have to, yes, like everything, a bit do it later. But now it's in a permanent exhibition, yes, or permanent museum, yeah.
And the other 2 that we saw, one is some kind, a sort of toy made with Meccano, imitating. It's basically a micro cinema with the same. It works as a projector, right? With the Malta cross.
Yes, yes. This idea is coming up because Stockis is a mechanic toy made in Switzerland. Actually, has in its catalog knew this cross, Malta cross. It's called somehow, or mechanic, which is the heart of every projector. And I thought, how could I do a little projector machine which is possible for other people to do it as well? And I searched away and found out with these bigger wheels we can assemble this, and probably it could be a project. Of course, I had started and forgetting it a bit, and then it was an exhibition 2 years ago about our GSIFA Association of Animation Filmmakers, and I thought, occasionally I will finish this project in that. And then I searched a loop, and I found in one of my sketchbooks this little loop of a person who is somehow cannot escape from a little room, something like that. So that is the story behind that object, yes. And it was shown on different places, and Stockis was also quite happy about to see what I've done with their mechanical.
They should sell the whole package together.
Yeah, maybe, yes.
It would be great.
Yeah.
And then the third one was a variation of a Praxinoscope, right?
Right, yes. This is an elderly work which I actually like still quite much. It's from an exhibition in Museum für Gestaltung in 2007. And there was the goal, or the idea was to have these iron sticks, which are actually on one 2-dimensional or on one cylinder, and if they are in movement, somehow the room should appear somehow. This was the topic of this exhibition was trick called space tricks or something. It was about spaces and animation.
So Basil, you graduated in Lucerne in 1989, and right after it you founded your studio, Trickbüro. What was the context of Swiss animation back then, and what were your first works in animation for the studio?
Yeah, actually, I during my graphic design education, I already realized the first Super 8 film. It was about I stayed in Newcastle, northern England, and there I found an old trace of a railway, and I first thought this could be a flipbook, but it's grown up to an animation film, and I've seen, oh, that's a lot of work. I never will do it again. But finally, after graphic, I searched work in different studios, film studios, to do animation or things in that direction, and I could find. But I also followed new projects, and so I had always bit the mixture between objects, developing ideas and animation. And friends of mine, they always joking a bit about me or laugh about me, because they say, do you do a new animation, or are you still thinking about the invention you need to do a new animation? So
okay, so I would like to show a video that you made for an animation you made for Xenix in 1999. Before talking about the technique you used to do that, I think it's better for us to show it. Just explain us, where was this shown? It was shown inside the movie theater, or which use did this video have?
Yeah, actually the Xenix trailer, we called it like that. I have scratched direct, or I did this film for advertise, or for because the new Dolby stereo components were installed in the cinema, and other cinemas were showing on that time big films with, you have to look around to celebrate this new technique, and I thought we can do this too.
So to promote the new Dolby system, Xenix used this film that we can watch right now. So it must have been pretty shocking or unexpected for the audience to see this film in the movie theater. How did you make it?
Yes, if you work as an operator in the cinema, it's the most important thing. You don't have to scratch in any film. And after 5 years to be an operator, I thought, now I will do that, and I will scratch now into film material. I want to check it out. And there is also the sound is a light sound, or functional, like a little light which is going through the film and gives makes the sound. So I thought, can I do a left and a right? So I have this stereo effect, and this was actually quite easy to do by doing 2 lines. It's just a line scratching and a little sparse in this side, or little scratches like that. And what's happened is it doesn't give you any nice sounds. It's always quite rough. So, and what you can do is you just can do help with a rhythm and work with that. So I took a film, a strip of film, Blanco, and I inserted in the projector, and I started to make, like with pencil, little. So I have seen what kind of rhythm I can do, and where I have to scratch these sounds. And this was really cheap to realize. This is one original film, and we did some copies for the cinema to show before program. It was by inviting by some festival. It was also on some festival, but it was actually thought more for this cinema using. Yes. And the figure is a little bug because the big film, which was in the other cinemas, was somehow a bee, which is going through the room and to demonstrate this effect. And so I thought I scratched this little bug, but I just have one picture after the other one, so it was you have really to scratch very careful. It was just a nail in a wood stick, a very, very simple tool, yes, to do that.
So basically, since the projector reads usually the optical stripe on the film, in this case it was reading your scratches. Is that right?
Yes, there are actually beside the picture there is this. It's an optical sound, and this is actually the first way. What useful to start with sound in the cinema system. All the other systems didn't really work with phonograph Platz or something, separate sound systems. They invented something which has give this traces on the film, and this was in the analog cinema. It is still just you can go back to the whole film history because you came back to these optical possibilities, and it's nice that you can just scratching it. Later I've seen that they did big graphic elements and reduced them and could make artificial sounds in already 1932 or something, just after inventing film. So this was a bit time before you could do a synthesizer or something like it. It was quite strange. So, but there are a lot of people who like to experiment with these new opportunities of technique. Yes.
And talking about film history and experimenting, working on the film directly is something that was done by the avant-garde of the 20s, for example. So, really, is animating and experimenting. Are these two sides of the same coin for you? Do they work together all the time?
Yes, mostly actually. But well, it depends how you define, because I think nearly every project has its own experiment behind in the background. So, and sometimes it's more in that way. Maybe it's a storytelling experiment, or so. There are a lot of very unique works. So,
you're a professor. How can you teach experimenting? I mean, it's basically a paradox, if you think so.
Yes, I know. It's I call it. I teach unknowledge. So it's what do we don't know actually is an interesting point. But even there, you can coach students to see what do you think it could be, and how to came up with to have this moment of surprise in working. Of course, you've got an idea of a result, maybe, because you start somehow, and you've probably somehow a goal, but keep this, it's an interesting point actually. I really like this. I teach the experimental storytelling, and there we also thought, how can we this unknown language, does not knowing how it's end, and but we start with something and we've got an idea. Or I always go up actually also with the experience I did already, as you could see already now by watching the things. So I start with this idea, and I came up to this newest version, which is different, but it takes the what I've seen, it works already in it, and so also this goes on to another work, and so you always take a bit with you. And still, I like to do things I don't know if it really works, so I have really to do it. I have to do and to see, does it works for for me, but also it's a deal with the audience. Of course, I count with an audience, but on the same time, I want to share something with them, and I don't know. So a bit how will it works? Mm-hmm.
Yes, and for a more recent and more structured film, which is Capitan in 2011, you also worked directly on the film. The film has had a big success. It has been in 70 festivals. If you want, it can be seen entirely on your website. But before talking about this film, I think we can watch the making of that you. It's a sort of making of that you made for the first screening, for the premiere of the film, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So you can see the different steps of the production and all the people working. I think it's a very interesting making of. We can watch it and we will talk about it later. I think the symbol of experimenting is seeing you making your own tools. So if no one has done it before, there are no tools to make it. So you even have to make the tools for it.
Yes, you have to find out how we can use this material. The film material actually is just a black film called, this is exploded material. So if you scratch a little bit, it is a dark green, and if you scratch a bit more, it becomes a light green and a yellow, and finally it's blanco white. So if you are on the bottom of her, yeah. So and so basically we had this pantograph to scratch, which you can see, and this is later I've seen. There are other people already have done this in the 50s. I don't know. I haven't seen other films, but I thought how. So I have to find this perfect pantograph. Is one of and so we have this scratching tool, and the main tool to scratch white is a tool I made actually in Le Brassus. And this is a toy maker for watches. Actually, they could do this with a iron steel, but the other ones for the special effects, so-called water and things. That's we developed the tools, and I found out that those brushes for grill. Yeah, you know, yeah, you have seen to barbecue things. Yeah, right. Yeah, and we used a lot of those tools, and some of the effects they just worked, and other ones we have to repeat for several times until we had these results. Yeah.
But still, we have seen there are a lot of people. There were a lot of people working for this film, so it was a very structured production. So experimenting doesn't mean working alone.
No, not at all. Yes. We of course it's in the basic. It's actually quite a conventional production, meaning there is a storyboard, like a book which explains the whole story. There are about 200 pictures already to show what happens in the film, and a plan how to realize. And then there is a plan where every scene which is animated. We animated all on papers. Yeah, it's normal paper animation, which we controlled in the computer. And finally, we find out there were 3 people normally working on it on the same time. And if 2 people do the animation and 1 people was on the pantograph, one was on scratching. And so this is somehow the same time. It used the same time, so we could always change. And so everybody once is scratching, and on the other hand is animating. So yes.
And then we get to your last short film, which is called Duodrome, that was released in 2019. We're gonna watch it, of course, but at first, what was the idea that brought you to this film?
Yeah, it started up, and on one hand I had a time, and I couldn't sleep very well, and then during the day I had something like an impression like I'm walking beside myself, as somehow like a naked skeleton, and the skin or the envelope or something wet on the floor, just a little bit beside me, in another way of walking something. And then I started to think about if somebody would felt in these 2 characters, what can you do with these 2 characters? What have they for? What are their opportunities in the material they can use, or how they can use their body? And I started to develop the story. Yes.
We will talk about the techniques that you've used for this film, which are extremely interesting. The main character is here with us as well. But at first, let's watch Duodrome together. So you don't need to be an animation expert to understand that from a technical point of view, it is an extremely interesting work using some very peculiar techniques. Before to talk about it, I think maybe it's easier if we watch a very short making of, but showing some things that maybe you do not expect that were used shooting this animation. So you used both drawings, like traditional drawings, and physical objects. So you have to make some models, some maquettes to do the 3D camera movements, actually, so real camera movements that were then integrated into a sort of flat image. And so how does that work technically, even for those like me, who's not an animator?
Yes, there were actually two reasons to do these cardboard models in a scale 1 to 32, which is the stage design scale somehow. But two reasons. One reason was that I had quite a lot of versions of storyboards, and we are going up to 9 different versions of the story. And in each storyboard I used to draw these locations a bit different. And so, of course, you do stage sketches or location situations. You could do plans and sketches to have a basic that everybody is working on it clearly. But when we are going to layout, I want to have to, like, this is now the place where it happens. This was, and then it was a good thing. While production, we invited a camera man who is working on normal fiction films, so he came from not from animation, and we find out which angle we choose or which cadrage we will use. We are sitting around the models instead of some computer drawings or something. We could just on the models imagine how this could we take the film. The other reason was, yes, as you said, to have these 3-dimensional impressions of the with some movements, and it was a lot of work for assistants for those scenes which are really put from the scene. Some we just have references in photographs we took from the models, but we were quite quick to do the layout then. And I'm very fast in modeling, to build up these cardboard models. I'm very fast to do that. So, but even then we had to have some compromises, and some scenes are in with layers, and so because otherwise it's a lot of work in it. Yeah.
So it's interesting because today we are used to see films live action films where they use CGI animation, imitating, pretending to be real. Here, basically, it's the other way around. You shot physical objects in order to create an animation.
Yeah, right. Yes, but there are other methods also that you design. So in the end, it's like a 2D animation, but in the behind, you've got 3D computer animation. This also happens, and you use it to come to this picture. So it's floating to each in each other. Sometimes, yes, it's working like that. Yes.
So it's technology not as the goal, but as a tool to get to the idea you want to, basically.
Yes, I mean, the technique is interesting for them who are working on it, but the other, if you wish, is somehow a third reason. When I came up with the idea that a man split up in those two characters and they are telling the story, I thought the surrounding, the place where it happens, should be in its illustrated way, be like a reality. Not the city where it's happened is not fantasy, or is not a strange illustration thing which is shifting too much. It's just a line drawing from reality somehow. And I'm going to research, and it's in Aarau actually. More or less, yes, quite the city of Aarau, yes.
There is one last very short clip showing a scene of the short film in slow motion. I think that helps very much understanding this work that you just described, so we can watch it. So you brought your skin with you, and how did you use this specifically? How helpful was it shooting the film?
Yes, this was actually made to doing the animations, as you could see in the last little clip. To animate the skeleton was easier than I thought before, but the envelope, the skin somehow was much more difficult, because we have to imagine how it works when it's bound like that. So
the skeleton was easier than the skin?
Yeah, it was easier. I thought skeleton will be quite difficult. There are 20 pieces to add this skeleton Still, a real skeleton has 200 and somehow bones. We reduced to 20, and it was still a lot, but they really solid. It's easier to handle the skeleton. But this figure can go around. And what is allowed to do? How can it stretch or not stretch? You have to do the rules in animation by yourself, and you have to work with those rules you invented. So to have a same figure, yeah, we worked with that puppet, or we cut it out from papers to have this. Yeah.
So we are approaching the conclusion of our meeting. Before finishing, today we kind of want to celebrate Swiss animation as well, animation in general, but Swiss animation also. And for the past 20 years, you've been a professor at the School of Art and Design in Lucerne. From your privileged point of view, do you think there is a Swiss style in animation, or not?
Actually, I hope that the animation is an art form which is very different than the individual. I don't know if it's such a country style or even a school style. Maybe if you watch a lot of films, maybe you can see a bit. But I'm very happy that actually the films are very different. So and you can see a country in the films. So because in every country there are people working in that are interested in this aspect of animation or in that aspect of animation. Yeah, I'm actually happy if the works are quite different, what the students are doing to each other. So
I think that's the perfect ending of our meeting and of our International Animation Day. Thank you so much, Basil Vogt, for being here today. It's been a great pleasure hosting you, welcoming you in Lugano. This is it for the first International Animation Day in southern Switzerland, in Ticino. Thank you all for watching these two meetings. And don't forget to follow the GSIFA, GSIFA, on our channels on social media for the updates, upcoming events, hopefully crowded events. We'll see when, but there will be in the future for sure. So see you soon.